So let's just get that poll question out of the way right away. Let's see what we got here. I'm curious to see what we think. So the poll question was, what does it mean when younger people say they're shipped? Bet. So what do we got here for stats? 27%, 61, 2%, solid, 10%. Pretty good. Okay, so 61% of you guys were right, but like half of that, you were just asking your kids what was it, so I'm not counting that. Yeah, no way. I have a media company, and we got a team of guys, and so we go and we film a lot of things. We take photographs and we film for clients, and it gets me in all sorts of places that I wouldn't usually be in. And a couple weeks ago, I was walking down this hallway of a high school, and these 2 grade 10 kids are walking up ahead of me, and I'm just close enough that I can hear what they're saying. And I hear these words, but I do not understand them. And I'm hearing like yeets and like yas queen, and then they're betting on something, and there's a ship, and I'm like, what? And I stop walking, and I just watch them walk away, and I think to myself, oh my gosh, am I old? I don't look like Paul. I don't feel like Paul. I don't have as many gray hairs as Paul does. Welcome to the team, buddy. I'll pay for that one later. But the reality is things are changing so fast. Like, it wasn't that long ago that I was in high school myself. And now when I'm walking down the hallway, I'm not even recognizing the language that they're speaking. We're just like totally different sides here. Things are changing so incredibly quickly. David Kinnaman, he's the president of Barna Research Group. They're a research firm that analyzes generational trends within religion. He says this. He says the generational gap between millennials and their predecessors is larger and potentially more difficult to bridge than any other previous generational gap we've seen in the recent West. And what he kind of means is that with every generation that comes to pass, the next one, usually because they're mad at their parents, they do things just a little bit different. So we have like just a degree of separation each time. But then millennials come along and they're like 7 degrees way over here. It's completely different than the previous generations. There's a radical difference between them and all the other generations before, and it's a challenge for the church, and he talks about this in the book. And I think there's 2 really predominant reasons for this. The first one is that we're in a technological revolution that has changed the way we live. Millennials are the first generation to kind of, from adolescence to wherever they are now, be fully absorbed in that. The second reason is this principle of a shadow, is that a shadow does not cast a shadow. And kind of the idea here behind this principle is that the 2 generations before millennials, you had, predominantly speaking, generalizing here, but predominantly speaking, you had critical mass in the culture of Christians who had the faith and who lived that way. And then the next generation lived in the shadow of that, and they didn't necessarily take the faith for the most part, but they all grew up in those households. And so they lived that way too. They carried on those values, but then millennials grew up and there was nothing casting a shadow for them. And so they abandoned because there were no good reasons. They would go, why do we have to do this, Mom and Dad? And they go, well, because I said so. Not because, because it's our faith is what we believe. It's just, no, it's because I said so. And so most of them, what we're finding now is that a large portion of this next generation is actually kind of walking away from not only the faith, but also just from that general value system completely. And so what we are seeing is a radical shift in values in this next generation that is leading to a culture and a society that is less accepting of Christians, less interested in Christianity, and even to some degree, less tolerant to our values. And this is kind of scary. I'm not going to lie, I go online and I look at social media, I look at Instagram, I look at Facebook, and I look at the political memes, and I read the comments underneath because I want to see what's happening. And it's a little concerning to watch the way that we're talking to each other, both Christians and non-Christians alike. They're just throwing mud at each other in these comment sections, and they're calling each other all sorts of hateful names. And then I go look at the news and the way that we're being represented, or there's some crazy Christian and he's representing us, and the news articles, they're talking, and people are trying to decide, like, how do we balance these values, because things are changing so quickly. And it makes me kind of scared, because the trajectory that we're on right now makes me wonder what it's going to be like for my kids to grow up in this culture. And are they going to be accepted for having those values? Are they going to be allowed to practice what they have convictions over? I have a neighbor, and he just finished moving into his house, and so he texts me one day. He's like, "Hey, I'm having a bunch of people over, and I'm my coworkers and my family, and I'd love for you to come over as well. Love for you and your wife to come. We'd love to meet you." And as I'm reading this text message, my heart just kind of like drops into my stomach, because I know that when I go over there and I talk to his coworkers, I talk to his friends, the very first question that's going to come out of their mouth is, "So what do you do?" "Oh, you're in school? What are you studying?" And in that moment, I'm going to have a choice. I can either lie, or I can drop the C word. "Oh, I work at my church." "Oh, you're a Christian." And I think in that moment, my heart dropped, because I was scared that he's seen the same news articles that I've seen, that he's been reading the same comments on social media that I've been reading, that he's seen the same misrepresentations of our faith that I've seen. And I'm scared that he's going to project his idea of what it means to be a Christian on me, and think that I'm like some bigot who pickets like abortion clinics, and that I'm hiding behind a keyboard, like calling people hateful names that I've never even met, or I don't even know their story. And I'm scared for that. And so I get this text message, and I feel my heart sink. So I start to pray. God, get me out of this. Maybe I forgot about something. Maybe there's something I have on today that I don't have to go to this thing. No, that didn't work. Okay, well, maybe there's like a Bible verse in like the Old Testament that talks about like not mixing with people who have different like fabrics or something. Maybe I can like abuse a Bible verse. Oh, probably not. I'd lose my job over that too. So okay, so I get to this place. I'm like, "Hey God, I'll make a deal with you. I'll go if you promise I don't have to tell him that I'm a Christian or talk about you at all." Because I don't want it to be awkward. He's my neighbor. He's my next. I got to live with this guy for the next little while, and I don't want to sit there in a moment where he's like, "Oh, you're a Christian," and it's awkward and it's uncomfortable and ugh. So I start to bargain. So 50 years ago, by and large, 50 years ago, most people did not think that way. Most people, not everybody, but most people didn't think, "Oh shoot, I don't want to tell my friend that I'm going to church on Sunday or that I'm a Christian because he's going to think all these things about me because the news is talking about me like this." Generally speaking, it wasn't quite as bad as it is now. It is progressing. The world we live in today is different. It is changing. Today I want to talk to you about a story in the Bible about somebody who was living in a world that was, he was living in a nation where everybody believed the same thing. And everybody held the same values, and they all had the same way of life, and it was good. But then that country lost a war, and everything radically changed. And this person and his friends were transported into a world in which it wasn't safe for them to have those values, to believe those things, and to live their life the way they used to live their life. We're going to be reading from Daniel chapter 1. You can turn there if you have a Bible. It'll be up on the screen, but I'm just going to lay a bit of context really quickly. So what was going on is Jerusalem was where Daniel lived, and it was a Jewish nation. So everybody kind of had the same faith, they had the same laws, they had the same rules about everything. It was all good. And then what happened is they lost a war to the Babylonians, who then came in, destroyed the place, and then took some of the cultural elites. They took some like the best of the best, the kids. They brought them back to Babylon. And so Daniel gets brought to Babylon, and he now is in a nation that doesn't play nicely with his faith. And so he undergoes an intensive assimilation process in which the king puts all these kids in this intensive process where he has his name changed. The Bible tells us he's put under the eunuchs, which means he was snipped. They don't teach you that in VeggieTales. And he goes through a 3-year schooling process in which he studies divination and the mystic arts. So Daniel could tell you how many virgins he'd have to sacrifice to secure a victory before going into battle with their gods. We don't learn about that in school either. The final thing that happened in this assimilation process was that his diet was changed. He was put on what they call the king's diet. He would eat from the king's table, meat and wine and all that he could want. So in verse 8, it says that Daniel resolved not to defile himself by eating from the king's table. And so he goes, okay, I'm not going to do this. This goes against my convictions. It goes against my Jewish laws around eating and kosher and all these things. So I'm not going to do that. So he goes to the chief eunuch. He goes to the guy in charge. He says, hey man, look, I can't do this. It violates my conscience. It violates my values. Can I please not do this? And the eunuch's like, no way, man. Are you kidding? Not only are you going to guarantee that the king will kill you, you're guaranteeing that he's going to kill me too. He's like, sorry, man, I like you, but no. So Daniel's okay, fine. So then he goes to the assistant chief eunuch. Assistant to the regional manager. And then he goes up to him and he goes, hey, look, man, I understand that this is a dangerous question, but this goes against my values. This goes against my way of life. And so here, I want to make you a deal. And that's where we're going to pick it up. Daniel chapter 1, verse number 12. Daniel says to the assistant, test your servants for 10 days. Test us for 10 days. Let us be given vegetables to eat and water to drink. See, something I find so inspiring about Daniel is that his country loses a war. He watches everybody around him die or get raped and pillaged, and he loses everything. He gets transported into this world where it's not even safe for him to have the convictions he has, and everybody around him, all the other kids, all the other youth that were taken from other places and are all part of this assimilation thing, they are just dipping to whatever level they have to. They don't care because they want to live. And so all around Daniel, everybody is conforming. And there's a principle of social conformity that's especially prevalent with kids. That when everybody is doing something, the pressure is immense to do it as well. Let alone the fact that you're going to die if you don't. So the fact that Daniel has resolve inspires me. Goes on to say, test your servants for 10 days. Let us begin vegetables to eat and water to drink. And then, verse 13, then let our appearance and the appearance of the youths who eat the king's food be observed by you. And finally, and then deal with your servants according to what you see. See, I'm all good with this verse right up until that last little sentence right there. If Daniel and me switched places, and this was the book of Craig, let's just pretend that for a second, right? And so if I'm in there, and I'm talking to this assistant eunuch, and I'm saying, let our appearance and the appearance of the youths who eat the king's food be observed by you, the next line would read, and if you're not satisfied, we can renegotiate the contract. Hey, I'm great with the camera. Do you want some video work? Like, please don't kill me. You've already snipped me. What else could you take from me? I'll do whatever it takes. But Daniel doesn't say that. He says, and deal with your servants according to what you see. Daniel shows us in his actions that while he has zeroed in on controlling what he can control, and he's zeroed in on the integrity that he knows he needs to have, he is trusting God with the outcome. He's trusting God to be in control of who is in control. I find that so inspiring that he has this idea that God is in control of who is in control. Blows my mind. I think it's really easy to forget that Daniel's life was on the line. And I don't know if we can know this for sure, but I'm pretty sure Daniel didn't actually know it was going to work out for him. Because if I was staring down the situation, I go back to my buddies and I'm like, oh, hey guys, here's the deal. We don't want to eat this food, but we need to make sure that we're plump by the end of 10 days. So what do we got? They're like, well, we got veggies. Okay, good. Do we have like a high calorie drink? We got water. Awesome. Like, okay, so that's not going to work out. And so for him to walk up to the chief eunuch or the assistant eunuch and say, listen, 10 days, veggies and water, against all the meats and all the foods you can, and all the wine, but we'll come out better. I don't think Daniel knew the outcome was certain, but he still trusted. When I was 16 years old, 16 and a half. I was driving home one day from camp. My mom was oddly quiet in the car. We finally get close enough to home that she has to speak, and she tells me that they just got back from the doctors the day before, and they found out my dad has stage 3 Hodgkin's lymphoma. For the next 3.5 years of my life, I watched my dad go through 4 chemotherapies, a bone marrow transplant, 2 radiations. I watched him slowly die in front of me. And when I was 19, I watched him in a hospital looking like he was 85 years old, breathe his last breath. And on my 20th birthday, 2 decades in, no longer a teenager, and I look over at my family, we're all celebrating, and my dad's not there. And on the happiest day of my life, I'm watching my bride walk down the alley towards me, and I'm looking around, and I look at my mom, she's crying, and I'm crying, and my dad's not there. When I bought my first home, and I have no idea if it's a gas hookup or what, and I got plumbing problems, and how do I pay my bills, and I just want to call my dad, but I can't. And someday when I have my first kid, he's going to be short one grandpa. So I understand that when you look at this and you don't feel a lot of comfort, I understand that. I understand that just writing this on a whiteboard is like, oh, this is so nice and everything. I understand that might not bring you comfort, because for years of my life, I looked at this and I thought, you know what? If God is in control of what's going on, then I'd hope that he would just leave, because I don't like what's happening and I don't want him to be in control of this. I understand that if today you're sitting here and you do not find a lot of comfort in what is happening in your life, I understand what you're going through. But I need you to know a couple things really quick. First of all, I need you to know that God did not create evil and pain and suffering. God did not want us to experience pain and heartache and suffering. That wasn't what he wanted for us. He built this thing so that we could experience only the good things, the amazing, the life, the joy, the peace that comes with relationship with him. But we chose to remove some of that from our lives. Darkness cannot be measured as its own entity. It's simply the absence of light. You have a dark room, you take out all the light and you just have a completely dark room. You can't add more darkness to it. It is simply just the absence of light, much like suffering and pain and hardships are not things created by God. They are not things we measure. They are things that exist because of the absence of good and joy and peace. Next question that I often ask myself, or people ask me, is, well, then why doesn't God just get rid of all the pain and the suffering that we're experiencing right now? Why doesn't God just take all this stuff away? Why does it exist? And for God to remove all the pain and the suffering, he would also have to remove the opportunity for pain and suffering to happen. He would have to remove the option for us to choose to cause pain and suffering, which would mean that he would have to remove the opportunity for us to have moral free will and make our own decisions. So while it is not good, there is something greater at play, because a world in which we cannot choose to do what is wrong and what is evil is also a world that we cannot choose to do what is right and what is good and what is loving. And our choices matter. The way we live our lives matter. The choices that we make mean something. I need you to know that in your pain and in your suffering and in your heartache, that God knows what you're going through, and God is working in that darkness to bring out light, to bring out good from the bad things you're experiencing. When I was a kid, I don't know if you guys know Britannia Mines. It's up on your way to Whistler. It used to be an active mine. It's not anymore. Now it's like a tourist place. And so kids go there a lot for school field trips. So when I was in, like grade 5 or 6, I was so excited to go to the mine because I was going to get rich. And then I was going to move out, get out of my house. And so I was like telling my mom about the whole week leading up. Oh, I'm so excited to go to Britannia Mines. I'm going to find gold. It's going to be awesome. And so we get there. And the ladies get out and we get out of the bus and the teacher's like, okay guys, so here's this thing and this thing. And I'm like, I don't care about any of that. I'm going to the sifting stations and I'm going to find gold. And so I work so hard. I kick everybody out of my section and I'm just all day long, I'm working on like pickaxes and stuff. I don't care about that, man. I want to get rich. And so finally I find some gold. And you're supposed to put it back. But I was like, no, man, I worked for this. And so I put it in my pocket. And then I went to the convenience store that was just around there. And I was like picking up all these things. I'm rich, I can do this now. And so I grabbed all these things and I get up into the line and I put them down. So the lady, it's like $13 or something. Pull out my gold. She just looks at me. She said, sweetie, did you get that from the sifting stations? Like very proudly, yeah. Like admitting to theft, but yeah, I did. She goes, honey, that's fool's gold. That's worthless. And some of you guys here today have been spending your whole lives working yourselves to the bone, convinced that what you have is worth something, convinced that what you have means something, and you're going to get to the end of the line one day. And I am scared because I'm scared that you're going to get to that end of the line and you're going to hear, honey, that's worthless. You might sincerely believe, I'm a good person and I've worked super hard. And you might sincerely believe, I've followed all the rules in this thing and I've read the Bible all these times. And I'm scared that you're going to get to the end of the line and you're going to hear what I heard. Charles Spurgeon writes, if you sincerely drink poison, it will kill you. If you sincerely cut your throat, you will die. If you sincerely believe a lie, you will suffer the consequences. You must not only be sincere, but you must be right. Larry Osborne, in his book, Thriving in Babylon, an excellent book that talks about the Daniel story, writes that the only way for the genuineness of our faith to be affirmed, its weakness to be revealed, or its bankruptcy to be exposed, is for it to be put through the test of hardship and suffering. In those moments, God is working in your life. And he is bringing about something good out of the bad that you are experiencing. And so when I say that God is in control of who is in control, what I also mean is that God is in control of our enemies. When people write articles about us, when people misrepresent us online, when people do this and people do that and they call us names on social media and whatever it is, God is in control of those situations and he is working it out for good. He's bringing good out of that. When I say that God is in control, what I mean is that God is in control of our finances. And in situations where the bills are piling up or something unexpected happens, or you have someone who gets laid off in your family and you're having trouble to make ends meet, God is working in those situations. And in the big picture of your life, he is bringing about something good to come out of you, refinement. When the government passes laws that make you scared for what your kids are going to have to live in and live through, God is working in that situation, and God is in control of that situation. And finally, in your pain, in the hardship that you experience in your life, God is in that. God sees what you are going through. God knows what you are experiencing. He cares about it. He is working in that. He is in control of that, and nothing has the power to overtake him. And so in that situation, in the darkness, God works so that light can come out of it. I was visiting my mom a couple of days ago and dropping something off at her home, and she was telling me about how she had this pastor who was there and who was visiting the church. They have like a partnership, and he's from North Africa, and so he's coming to tell the church about everything that was going on. And so about halfway through his trip, he gets a call and he has to leave. And I was like, oh no, why do you have to go? And he goes, well, someone in my church is going to get baptized, so I have to go back home. She said, well, that's kind of odd. Can't someone else baptize? Just dunk in the water. Can't someone else do that? And he goes, no, in my country, when someone's going to get baptized, the government comes and they take their home and they take their land. In my country, when you get baptized, your uncles and your cousins, they come and they try to hunt you down and kill you. So I don't have to go back home just to dunk somebody. I have to go back home because the church has to come together. We have to pool our resources. We have to get everything that we have so that we can take care of this new family that's going to come into our church family. So we can make sure that they have and that they're taken care of and that they're protected. And she's telling me this story. I start to feel my face turn red. And I start to hear her voice fade out. And all of a sudden, God starts speaking to me. He's like, Craig, this is a really nice, comforting message, but it's not for you. Craig, you weren't scared to tell your neighbor about me because you were worried that the government was going to come take your home or that your family was going to hunt you down and try to kill you. You were scared to tell your neighbor about me because you built something comfortable for yourself. And you didn't want to risk it. You didn't want it to be awkward. Because you live beside him. So you didn't want to tell him. You prayed to me because you didn't want to tell him about your faith. I think this is one of the reasons why people have such a hard time when they just reject Christianity. Because we say that, our faith and Jesus and the Bible is the most important thing to us. We put it above everything else. We put it above our finances and our vacations and our families and everything under the sun. We put it above all of that, which is a good thing. But then all of a sudden, God calls us to do something. And when push comes to shove, when it's hard to uphold our integrity and our values, or when God calls you to do something that hurts or that's going to cost you something, all of a sudden we struggle with that. And I don't know about you, but for me, I start to look for ways out. And it kind of becomes evident that God's actually not at the top. See, for some of you guys today, this is the message you need to hear. And there's nothing wrong with that. For some of you guys today, you're going through things, and this is what you need to know, that God is in control, that he does see, that he does know, that you are not alone. But if you're a Christian here today, and this is the extent of your relationship, if your relationship, your faith is that God is in control of all these bad things happening and he's going to take care of it, and that's where it ends. If that's the line that you draw, that's the extent of your faith, then he's not your God, he's just your personal genie. See, if we're going to say that God is in control of all of these things, then we also have to let God be in control of how we pray for our enemies. We have to let God be in control of how we steward our finances, both in the good times and in the bad times. We have to let God be in control of how we pray for our government. And we have to let God be in control of our attitude when we go through suffering and hardship. Church, the trend of Christianity being less and less accepted in our society is not going to slow down. It is going to continue to become harder and harder to have our values, to believe what we believe, and to live the way we live. We're not making a comeback. We're going to look more and more like Babylon with every day. And that actually is not entirely a bad thing. Because we were not meant to just merely survive. We were meant to thrive. And in the darkness, we can shine so bright. There is immense opportunity coming. See, the solution to our fear is not more comfort. The solution to our fear is more cause. See, when we just want comfort, when we are scared and we get comfortable and we try to find things, what we do is we just withdraw from society, and we make these sub-Christian cultures with Christian sports leagues and Christian music and Christian movies. And those aren't all bad things. I'm not saying that's wrong. But if you just withdraw from society, you just pull back and you just make your own little world, that's not the answer to fear. That's just going to make you more comfortable. The answer to our fear is that we need to be reminded of the fact that there is truth in this world. That there are people that sincerely believe something that we, for the most part, have actually just poorly represented to society, and they believe this thing, and there's truth in Jesus that can set them free from all the things that they are stuck in, from the world that they are just consuming in, that they are looking for something. But the world can't offer to them, then they will continue to consume and consume and consume, and we have the answer. We are the front lines of the truth of Jesus to this world. This is our cause. Our cause is to live in such a way that our lives point people to Jesus. I'm going to pray for you guys in a moment, but I want to show you something. This is my chair. Brought it from home. You can tell it's not an old person's chair because it only costs $20 and that's all I can afford. It's really comfortable at home, surrounded by chairs that look just like it. It's not difficult at all for it to be there. I need to start going out of my comfort zone, sitting around chairs that don't just look like me and sound like me and think like me and talk like me. I need to start being light in a world that is growing darker by the minute. Let me pray for you guys. God, there's really two messages here. And I don't want anybody to feel bad for needing one more than the other. Jesus, I pray for the people in this room who feel alone. I pray for the people in this room who feel like their world is spiraling out of control. Lord, you have brought them here today so that they can hear that they are not alone. So they can hear that you do love them, you do know what they are going through, and you are there for them, and you are in control. God, I pray for those who are at risk of having fool's gold. I mean, you know I did when I was 16 years old. I walked the walk, I talked the talk, but Jesus, I did not know you. Lord, I pray for people who are experiencing moments of refinement, that they would experience and hold on to something true, and that what is not real in their lives, the fool's gold that they have, would burn away, but then the pure gold would stay, Jesus, that you would give them something so that when at the end of the line one day they hear that is worth something. Your faith is worth something. Jesus, I pray that as we take this message to heart, as we think about the fact that we need to be on mission as a church, that we have a purpose, a cause in our life to reach other people, to live our lives, not necessarily throwing Christian bumper stickers on everything we do, but just to live our lives in a way that impacts other people, that we show them what real love looks like. God, I pray that you bring names to our mind right now of who we can affect and who we can love and what we can do for your kingdom. Jesus, I pray you'd give us courage to act boldly in a world that can be scary and that can be uncomfortable. In your name, amen.